Before we get into the Week 13 recap, we need to talk about some big news, big move. Unless you have lived under a rock in the last 24 to 48 hours, Deion Sanders, coach of Jackson State University, has decided to move on to Colorado University, right? So I have several friends that have gone to HBCUs, and it really is, some people are, commending him for what he did for Jackson State, and moved on. He, just like anything else, any situation, any relationship that is built, you want to leave it better than, when you came, right? And clearly he's done that, right? He is, all eyes were, even more than I can even remember, have been on HBCUs. And a lot of that is because of Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. Then I've had conversations with people that have gone to HBCUs, and they feel like he left too soon. He kind of pretty much is, in a sense, pulling the rug from that team. Because, Deion is going to, Colorado, obviously a bigger program. They have more money. It's a Power 5 school. Those recruits that were going there specifically to go into Jackson State specifically for Deion are now going to the transfer portal. So unlike any other time, it used to be a situation where if you were in a school, if you went to a school, you couldn't just halfway in the season, I don't like the way this is happening and now I'm out. Or if you decide to leave a school, then you couldn't just go right to another school and start playing. Because of NIL deals and transfer portal, now that's possible. So it gives power to the student athletes, which is a fantastic thing. Because let's be honest, these universities have been making millions and millions of dollars off of student athletes. And, their excuse or their explanation for how that wasn't shared with the students was, you got a scholarship and you got a meal, right? You got some books, right? But it doesn't equate. So bowl games are for the cities that host it, for the actual schools, they make tens of millions of dollars in bowl games. And that is not really, that wealth or that money is not really brought down and shared with the student athletes. So Deion leaving, I heard some, good and bad things as far as, what their take is on it. Also, I will say this. I was watching Undisputed today, and Shannon Sharpe, who I really do like. I like Shannon Sharpe, and a comparison between Shannon Sharpe and Stephen A. Shannon Sharpe is, I like that show. I like the dynamic. But Shannon, since he's been on the air, I've noticed he's changing a little bit, right? Okay. So he's not the Shannon Sharpe that people, was calling, that's Unc, because he would give sound advice. He would keep it, quote unquote, real. I think some of that realness is seeping out slowly but surely. But he brings up a point because Shannon Sharpe went to Savannah State. And obviously he's a Hall of Fame tight end, right? So he's had a fantastic career. So Shannon Sharpe was defending Deion Sanders' decision to move on, right? Which is no problem. If you want to put yourself in a better situation and you feel that moving to Colorado, which is, bottom feeder in Power 5, that was a better situation than staying in Jackson State, that's your choice. That's your prerogative to do. Right. What I didn't like about what Shannon Sharpe said was Shannon Sharpe was saying, because my grades wasn't good and because, I pretty much went to a HBCU by default as opposed to it not being my first choice. Now, he could have left that out, in my opinion, because what does that say to other recruits, other people that are potentially, their eyes are on HBCUs? It shouldn't be a second class form of education or experience. So my question to the audience, and then I'll give it to you, is: are we looking at HBCUs as a second class education kind of experience, or should we be looking at it as, you know what, it's on par with anything else? Because if you're good enough, especially if we're talking about student athletes, if you're good enough, you're good enough. Eyes will be on you. People will hear about it. It doesn't matter if you're in some mountain somewhere in a cave. If you can throw the ball, or if you can shoot, you can shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we can't allow or think that our ability to go to the next level is totally hinged upon what school we go to. Yes, some schools get more TV time. Their games are always televised. That is true. But at the same time, I think that Shannon Sharpe's comments, I thought was more damaging than uplifting, because you can't at one point uplift Deion for making the decision, but then saying, well, HBCUs wasn't my first choice. And he was adamant about, like, that's not my first choice. So I thought that was kind of unnecessary. What do you say?
Yeah, I saw the comments there. I was watching the show earlier myself. And one of the things that's interesting, I agree. I don't think he should have inserted that. And if he was going to do that, which he did, he probably should have put it in context. I think we got to look at the time and the construct, the culture of college football at that time, particularly obviously for Black athletes. HBCU was clearly an afterthought. Wasn't even, I don't even think it might have been an afterthought to an afterthought, because it was only about going to the big schools, as you heard him also state in that show today. How even HBCU's school wanted to talk to him, and his coach was like, "No, I mean, this is a top 5 athlete in the country. No, we're going to, he needs to be at a major university, and so he still took the time, obviously, to entertain him. But at that time, I think if we put it in context, okay, it would be understandable that no athlete, basketball, football in particular, because those are the 2 major sports that bring in the most money for the NCAA, was thinking about an HBCU. Okay, so we understand that times have changed now, right? Through more advancement, we've become more progressive. We've sort of had to fight and kick down these walls of restrictions that alienated Black athletes, primarily, to your point earlier about athletes making money. We didn't make any money, right? Everybody else made money off the athletes. You could hear Chris Webber and the Fab Five talk about their days and when they were at the height of their success and their phenomenon back in Michigan, and their jerseys are selling in the stores in the Michigan halls, and they can't even afford a sandwich to eat, right? And so things have changed now. The NIL, things of this nature, you talked about the transfer portal, all of these things now work to the advantage of the athlete. And even though there's still some things that I feel that are inhibitive still to the Black athletes in particular, but that's for another show. But I want to say this, I think when you look at that, he probably should have put that in context, okay? Because yes, it would come off and convey a message that, you know what, maybe, the HBCU is not something we should look at, especially since Deion has moved on. Now, the thing is, I think what I did like what Shannon said, and I do agree with him in that sense, and I've heard others say this, Deion did what he was supposed to do, okay? Now, for how long, what the duration should have been, I don't know. What we can, that's subjective. We can argue about that, but the reality is that Deion did a lot, right, for Jackson State, gave them a blueprint, gave them a model, gave them a paradigm for them to follow, okay, to be able to garner, generate, and establish streams for their school as well. Now, of course, again, they don't have Deion there. Deion makes life a lot easier for a school to be able to get advertising and to get the other things that they need. But that may have been the thing that should have probably been discussed, right? Jackson State, and I'm not saying that this was the case. I'm not saying this was their mentality, but it feels like, hey, we got Deion. We're going to sit back and we're going to let Deion be the face, which he was, which he knew he would be, which he had no problem. And I think he upheld whatever rhetorical end of the bargain, if you will, type of agreement on his end to bring the cachet, to bring the influence, to bring all those great recruits to that school and bringing the level of visibility to HBCUs, in particular Jackson State, right? But at some point, when was this going to be a model for either it be other ADs, other coaches, other athletes, other programs to say, okay, while we got Deion here, let's establish something so that we can have a foundation. Let's engineer something that we can be able to bring other athletes in, or rather coaches, and be able to build up the program, because not every school is going to be able to get a Deion Sanders, right? But how do we get to the place where we need to be, where we can put something together that would be I would say streamlined for everyone coming after. Look, Deion is a trailblazer. All he's doing is setting a path for others to follow. And I think, you could say what you want to say, but he did do a lot. And I don't know how much more they were expecting Deion to do, and how long should he stay there to do what he was going to, what he already did. I think it's time for others to come in there and look, Deion is looking at this as an assignment, and I guess in his mind, he fulfilled that assignment. I do agree that it's a hurting thing to the state of Mississippi, to Jackson State, to the university, to that economy, to those kids. Yes, it is. But I don't think we should be in a position, even as I feel as Black people, where we kind of get to a place where we look at other people. And I'll make this last point, Dean, I'll toss it back, where we see people that have garnered great success and wealth, okay, such as your Deons or your Jay-Z's or anybody else of that stature in whatever genre of field that they're in. And we look back and just say, okay, now you do this, you do that, you do this. Yes, there is something put on their shoulders, and there is a responsibility that they have. And I think to a large part, they do understand that. But at some point, then when do we as a community say, hey, let's be able now to take this and move it? When Martin Luther King was assassinated, when Malcolm X was assassinated, yes, the movement suffered a little bit, but at the same time, the movement did still continue to grow. And there were people that took what they said, applied their tenets, applied the things that these men left them to do, and they were able to go ahead and begin to force freedom in other aspects of life and in our society. And I think that's what our people as a whole, we got to be able to do. We got to say, hey, we see what these people are doing, set the standard. Now let's come in here and let's be able to do something and build on top of the path that somebody else has trended for us.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think from the outside looking in, I think if you look at, like you mentioned, the blueprint, Deion has had to have taught Jackson State and other HBCUs how to fish, right?
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
that's what it all amounts to. At the end of the day, blueprint, we build, this is how, from bottom to top, this is how you can structure it. I mean, things that he's done has just been tremendous in such a short period of time, if you think about it. And it's amazing. Deion has, since he has been in Jackson State, Mississippi, he has added millions to the economy.
Absolutely.
And Brett Favre has taken millions. Isn't that amazing? Brett Favre at the same time, while people are still, whoa, you left us high and dry. Brett Favre is stealing from poor people. So let's not forget that. Okay. Yes. That's the same state.
Yep.
He's stealing from poor people. Deion is empowering, teaching them how to fish, and trying to, as a whole, HBCUs, because it's just like this. Remember, golf, for example. Tiger Woods, the purse or the amount of eyes that were on golf while Tiger Woods was there, everybody benefited from it, right? Whether he won or lost, whoever won benefited. So Deion Sanders being in a HBCU, all of those schools, whether they were, you not SWAC, you SWAC, you this, you that, they all benefited because those games were televised. Recruits are now looking that way. Maybe NFL coaches or any type we're now interested in becoming consultants. Ex-NFL players were looking to become coaches at HBCUs. Sometimes their alma maters, even other schools that had vacancies. So the Deion effect is greater than him just staying at a university. Absolutely. And if it's about advancement, at the end of the day, you advance, you elevate, and then you got to keep going. We have to make sure that we establish someone behind us who is going to carry the legacy on for the next generation, because Deion is bigger than Jackson State. And what I mean by that is his impact on HBCUs, his impact on this, if anything, it
Right.
allows him to uh, elevate these young black men or,
Uh-huh.
or players to
Right.
another level, because that's what he was doing at Jackson State. Anything he ever
That's what he did.
posted, it was about elevating them, getting them to be men
Mhm.
outside of, yes, because everybody's not going to make it to the NFL,
Right.
and everybody's not going to be a Deion.
Nope.
So what are you bringing to your community? What do you
Right.
bring into society
Right.
outside of that? Yes, you learn how to, all of the benefits of a team sport, and self-sacrifice and all of that good stuff.
Right.
But Dion is building the character in these men,
Yes, it
which
is.
is a even greater impact than just, oh, we are 11-0, and we
Yes.
went to this bowl game or not. So kudos
And
to Dion for what
kudos
he's
to
done.
Deion, and I'll say one more thing, D, before we slide, I guess, to the next block. I was gonna say this. I have to. I don't know if you saw the his opening state, not the press conference he did, but his meeting with the actual team in
I
Colorado.
did. I did.
I love the speech. I love everything he said. It was amazing to me. But I will say this about our community, and I think this is teaching us a lesson yet again. I think the problem with our culture and our community as black people is sometimes we get caught up in idolizing too much. We gaze at these people and we applaud them and give them all of these platitudes for what they're doing. But again, to your point and to what I said, they're not getting the understanding and the insight of grabbing something from this and being able to build out of that. So we'll look at the Deion. So we'll look at the Deions and we'll look at, all of the other celebrities that are doing these things, but we idolize so much so and gaze upon them that when they decide to move on, we're hurt, we're broken, we're sad, we're just destitute and debilitated because these people left. And that's the thing, I think, with our people as a community, we have to learn not to gaze and just get into this trance with someone that we see is doing something that's never been done before. What Deion did with Jackson State is amazing. To be bold enough, and for Jackson State to even take a chance on him as well, was a bold thing. We applauded it. We thought it was great. We knew the visibility that was going to come with it, which it did. But then we just kept looking at it, and we just kept gazing at it, and we just fell into a trance. And this is what happened. So when Deion says, "Okay, gotta go," now we're left with nothing. And now we're hurt, and now we're angry because instead of gazing, we should have been grazing, and we should have been putting stuff into the field so that we can get things together like the way we need to set up the next entity.
And I believe Jackson State was left in good hands. I'm sure he has a structure in place. I don't
Sure,
think so that is a positive thing.
I
And
agree.
as we know, nothing lasts forever, right?
Absolutely not.